Hello and welcome to the North Bank podcast with me, producer Chris, and a very happy away end Stef.
La 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 la. La 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 la. His name is Gabby. He's from Sao Paulo and he plays for Arsenal. Oh, that has just been going around my head over and over. I was going around Tesco's earlier, just bouncing.
I wonder what that was. La 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 la. You sent us a text.
La 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 la.
Okay.
La la la. Oh, it was going off like on the exit out of the Bernabeu. The Ashburton Army had congregated with the drum. They took their drum. How did they get their drum in? Was that pre-agreed with the stewards?
For context, we just need to remind people.
Sorry,
you went to the game.
Sorry, did I mention I went to the Bernabeu?
Did you go to the Bernabeu?
I went to the Bernabeu, Chris. Yeah,
there was a game, was there? Okay,
bit of a game on. Yeah, not just a tour.
Also, just to point out that obviously. Holly isn't with us again. He's still trying to get a Wi-Fi signal in county, whatever he is in Ireland. So hello, mate. Good luck with that. So yes, back to the business of the Bernabeu. You have to just basically take us through it in a kind of, just give us a whistle stop tour of what, leading up to the game.
Oh,
sip on my tea.
We've just had an incredible time because to cap it off with a win in the Bernabeu is just mega. And look, let's face it, the hard work was done at home. That 3-0 performance at home was another level. And to then go to the Bernabeu, full of nerves, despite a 3-0 win. I think we all believed the hype, and you kept saying we just need to not buy into the aura of Madrid. But the problem is, I think Madrid have been
totally
fallen to their own aura, because in the build-up, I mean, you'd see a few Madrid fans here and there, and they were saying, yeah, we'll do it, yep, we'll see, our house and all that kind of stuff. And I just feel now we are on another level. It's just incredible. Right. As a fan, look, I could talk about the trip, but we'd actually done a little bit of walking and stuff on the day of the match, just to try and see a few bits here and there. A lot of Arsenal fans were congregating in Plaza Mayor, so you'll see lots of videos online where they're in that square, they're singing songs and drinking and laughing and booting footballs about. Was probably one of the last things I saw at one point, and it was all very buoyant. Happy stuff basically going on. It was great, but we thought we'd have a little bit of a long walk around the city, grab some food, stopped in a taberna, grabbed some food, couple of coffee shops, and it just took our time with it, went to see the bull ring and then walked around to the stadium. As we're getting a bit closer to the stadium, because we're looking around going, this is quite built up. And, we'd seen pictures. None of us had ever been to a few people I was with had been to the old Bernabeu and were there, in fact, in 2006 when we last won. But, we'd seen pictures of this mighty cathedral to football, and we're walking around going, it is very built up. And so it sort of sneaks up on you. As we came sort of down to it, there it was. And actually, I have to say, on the outside, I'm not a fan. Mm-hmm. It's got this weird... It looks very silver in some pictures and promotional stuff, but when you get up to it, it's a lot duller,
grey.
It's a lot greyer, and just not. Yeah, didn't do much for me on the outside. But the crowds around, I've never seen that many people congregated. It reminded me of, years ago when I used to do music festivals and things, and trying to, when you're just squeezing through and everyone's literally shoulder to shoulder. It was that around the streets of the stadium. I've never seen that at football. Not at a football match. You literally could not move for people. They were doing that big welcome to the stadium for the buses. I think that had horses flanking them and all sorts of things, trying to generate that atmosphere that they were sort of talking about. So we then loop round and into the away end, and it's a long way up. We're 5 tiers up, basically. But here's the thing. Everyone talks about Newcastle away being up in the gods. The Bernabeu's got escalators. Whoa.
Whee!
Oh, it was it was like pure luxury, just walking up. Oh, not even walking up escalators, just travelling up escalators. So that sort of took the burden off a bit, but everyone's just absolutely buzzing. Something to be said about the treatment of fans. 0% beer was the only beer you could get in the stadium, which I mean, I don't get it. It's just weird. Like, you're not particularly allowed to drink in view of the pitch and things and all that kind of stuff. So, like, why not?
Is that particular to their kind of regular home fans, or is it just because of the enormity of the occasion and because the English are in town?
No idea. It wouldn't surprise me at all if it was just because the English are in town, or if it's a Champions League thing, for example. But I just thought that was a bit odd, a bit strange. But hey ho. Take our seats. One of the steepest stands I've ever stood in, and I must say, like, the contrast. I said I wasn't really impressed by the outside. The inside takes your breath away at first. Cathedral of football is the phrase I've been using quite a lot. It is ginormous, and just it's epic. I am tempted to go back at some point, whether it's just a tour or to check out one of their league games, because I would like to see it from lower down, because it will be a completely different perspective. We were so far up, I was only 10 or so rows right from the back, and to the point where we had our own personal screens to see the close-ups, which would never get anywhere else particularly. There's even a row of heaters above us keeping us warm. If anything, I was boiling hot by the end of it. It was as a spectacle.
They should have opened the roof, Steph.
They should have opened the roof. Yes, I'm not sure what closing the roof gave them as a benefit in the end, but there we go. So it was just amazing on the inside to look at. They obviously had their tifo before the game, but I have to say the Arsenal fans were just incredible. The Ashburton Army was certainly representing. The drummer was there, and it gave everything a much more consistent kind of rhythm and flow to it, and it was just epic. And then the way the game unfolded, absolute roller coaster, culminating in just ecstasy. It was just brilliant, and I'm still sort of floating on air.
Yeah. We are too, and we weren't even there. So just to give you some context, I mean, interestingly, earlier today I read a quote you were saying earlier about the aura that Real have produced, not just for this game, but for years now. And Arsene Wenger came out and said something recent. I don't know how much of it is kind of cobbled together from previous quotes, but it was basically along the lines of trophies don't score you goals. And just alluding to this idea that you can't turn up and outfight a team who's prepared to come and fight just based on your history. And Real Madrid aren't alone in that. There's a lot of teams that have kind of tried to, basically a sense of entitlement, try and just play on their aura a bit too much. And I think like you said, we dispelled that in the first game. Obviously gave us a great platform of confidence to go into this game with. So had it been a tighter affair, maybe we wouldn't have had quite the confidence, who knows, going into this game. But there was certainly no fear. And as Arteta said, we go in to respect them, but there is absolutely no fear. And that showed from the off, didn't it? From the very first. It
was something else. I mean, I've heard his pre-match comments since, and he was talking about letting the football do the talking, because Madrid it was all about PR, it seemed, rather than a way to try and overcome. It's been a while since I've seen just a bunch of individuals, basically.
Yeah.
And not really do much. It was basically give the ball to Vinny Jr. or give the ball to Mbappe and see what they can do. Bellingham, just like the first game, was incredibly disappointing. I know they've got one or two maybe makeshift players in sort of fullback positions, but they just looked completely overawed. And ultimately, it turned into them being a little bit sort of petty and spiteful.
Absolutely, yeah.
Rudiger's my new villain and hate figure. I cannot stand that guy at all. He is a joke of a player, despite all of the stuff he's won, I know, but I just don't see it. And apart from Courtois, they were really disappointing. Yeah. But ultimately, I definitely want to focus on us. We were so good, despite, all right, you talk about a penalty miss, or you talk about, a silly push that gets you a yellow card. There are things we can sort of grumble about, but ultimately, Arteta has instilled this work ethic and determination and belief like no one since Wenger, basically. It's and I'm talking about the early days of Wenger more than anything. It's just incredible.
The focus that was on display from the off from us versus their, like you said, that kind of petulance that grew in them, and in particular Bellingham and Rudiger. And at the first I was watching it and I was getting angry, for us. But then I just thought, no, this is good actually. I'm taking this as a compliment because we've got them rattled, and it doesn't happen often. To see that kind of petulance on their own turf as well was incredibly gratifying. So let's pick out a few of these points again. The penalty for us is one of those where you don't often see them given in the Prem, but it's one of those as well that if it was not in the penalty area would probably be given as a free kick when, the arms are all around him. So I've always wrestled with that kind of conflict of, well, if it's a foul, it's a foul no matter where it is. So give it as a penalty and let's see, some consistency, and maybe they'll stop doing it in the box. But again, it is something we don't see very often. So you take it every day of the week. Thank you very much. And then, of course, Saka tries the Panenka, but it's not one thing or the other, really, is it? He just kind of chips it nicely for Courtois, goes the right way.
Yes. What was disappointing for us? Well, first of all, when the decision's made, as much as I felt like, obviously a lot of the officiating did seem to benefit us with those penalty decisions, but at the same time, it's just the way it's communicated. The first decision, play had gone through several phases before suddenly there's a penalty check out of nowhere, and everyone's looking at each other and we have no idea what's going on. So presumably people at home are seeing replays about the incident and are able to tell, whereas us in the stadium have nothing to go on. And ultimately was just quite surprised that a penalty was given. I'm going to sort of undermine what I've sort of said, that I was pleased at how we didn't kowtow to their aura, but neither did the officials. We couldn't believe that we were being given a penalty in the Bernabeu against Madrid. And as for Saka, look, it was again this roller coaster. When we think about the game, it was a case of, hey, we've been given a penalty. That's the up, and then the down. Saka's missed it, and then down. Real Madrid have been given a penalty, and then hey, and just the whole time, and with the goals we'll get to, but so one Saka misses, the vibes suddenly do shift a little bit. There's a bit of negativity because everyone's thinking that could have been the game, could have been game. Thankfully, it wasn't. From our long distance away, it was one of those ones we've complained a couple of times this season, especially in penalty shootout against United in the FA Cup, about Raya going early. Raya's tactic seems to be, I'll just go one way and hope that they kick it that way, and then it'll be a save no matter what, because I'll get right across and that will work, which isn't really the way penalty takers are taking penalties now. They do that thing, it's a kind of stuttered run up or a skip or a dragged foot towards the ball that then they can put home, because what they're really doing is those micro decisions of where seeing a keeper put their weight one side and then they hit it. It's this, cat and mouse game between the keeper and the penalty taker. And it felt like Courtois had gone maybe slightly early. And I in that run-up, it's like time stopped still, and I'm thinking, right, well, Saka's seen that, and now he's going to put it the other... Oh, no, he's gone that way, and it's a very weak attempt, and he's just palmed it away. Oh, no. It's one of them. Saka could take 1,000,000 of those, and I wouldn't care. He's our superstar at the end of the day, because how many players would come back from what he went through with England? Well, he did. And his trajectory just keeps going up and up and up. And that game was a microcosm of the adversity he's faced, and then what he's delivered.
How he's come back.
It's just magic. As disappointing as it was in the moment, fine.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
And the little bit of stick he got from Carvajal at halftime. I don't know if you saw that, but
Saw none of that live. I've seen it since. I mean, again, it's just I was quite surprised at how classless the whole Madrid thing was. Apart from maybe Ancelotti, Courtois, Bellingham was magnanimous in his comments, but his actions certainly didn't demonstrate that. And yeah, for Carvajal to do that, I mean, it's just pathetic. And then I realised, because there's a few clips going round of obviously him and Saka had a bit of a to-do for England-Spain in the finals, and he was doing all that to Saka when Saka was complaining that he was fouled. So he's just got that petulant, like you say, entitled streak, and to do that. So to then see his face on replays since of when Saka scores, I'll take that all day long. Go on, Carvajal.
The second penalty, inverted commas, was certainly not a penalty, and I don't know why it took them 5 minutes to work that one out. Were you and the Arsenal fans in the ground kind of hearts in mouths at that one?
Yep.
Did you feel like that could be a turning point?
Of course. I mean, when players are that close, we have no idea on the actual, what do you call it, the depth perception of the contact or anything like that. We've got no idea. Look, you know, we're going to say that Mbappe went down easily, but we really don't know. Rice's protests seemed genuine and earnest, but then I don't know. Yeah, I mean, Rice has sort of said since, I think, that what was it? He said if I'd conceded a penalty, I'd admit it. He does strike me as someone who probably would do that, but at the same time, it's like I don't know if I do want it anyway. So it definitely wasn't a penalty. No. Definitely not.
Definitely not.
Oh, okay.
But I'm not. I'm just that. For me, it was like, oh my god, this could be a turning point. So I imagine that was magnified for you guys in the stadium.
Well, yeah, and especially because the check was for so long. So was it a case of were the officials in the VAR on the mic to the ref trying to convince him that it wasn't, or was there a miscommunication? Were they poring over the image first before they really were clear? I've got no idea.
Well, there was talk of it possibly being an offside because as it came over, I think it got a flick on, and at that moment was Mbappe in an offside position, which would render the foul point, irrelevant. But I mean, in the end, it just took so long that we were just, I said to you earlier before we started recording, for me, sitting at home with 3 young children who have no sympathy, empathy, whatever, with me, this kind of weeping middle-aged man in knots, and my wife who hates football, is just, what's wrong with you? Pull yourself together. So I was in pieces at that. Anyway,
yeah, we were very hearts in mouths, and just the delay. I mean, I'm a broken record when it comes to how quickly or not these things take. Look, ultimately, we can't really complain if it gets to the right decision. We had no idea in the ground whether or not it was. Obviously, Madrid are going to sort of cry about it, and hopefully the right decision was come to. But just what a delay. And we were just thinking, once it's overturned, I think everyone was starting to think, okay, well, wow, this is really frustrating for them. We've still got our 3 goals. What on earth is going on?
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that, we were that words fail me in just these incidents. When you think about being given a penalty at the Bernabeu, when you think about a penalty being overturned, narrative-wise, we're in dreamland now of all the things that are sort of unfolding, and it all comes down to the fact that that's what they were clinging on to. They were clinging on to a decision going their way and something happening almost by chance.
Yeah, and it seemed like they'd resorted to slinging crosses in, which again I would have never expected a Madrid team to do with the riches of attack that they've got.
Vinicius Junior, Mbappe, they're not players who just feed off crosses. Like, what's going on?
No. And they had no shots on target in the first half, to my knowledge. Raya didn't have to make a save. We get to half time and we're thinking, we're going to do this, aren't we? And then and the second half and the goal. Talk us through the goal from your perspective.
Just, again, absolutely magic because of who it is. and the fact he'd missed a penalty in the game, and the fact that it's such a delicate chip. It's almost what he kind of intended to do for the penalty, and it's just absolutely magic. That Saka's movement and danger, and it has to be said, what a ball from Marino to slip him in as well. There are a few comments, not only online, actually, a lot of people in person that I spoke to, you know, a few questions being asked of Odegaard. And normally, this is the thing, but perspective is so different because when I'm at the Arsenal, where North Bank lower, and you don't see the tactical sort of shift. When I got my season ticket to begin with at Arsenal, I was right North Bank upper, right in the middle of the goal, pretty much the same view that I had yesterday, not yesterday, the day before, in the Bernabeu, where you're just looking over the pitch. It's like, you know, from
so
one
see
end,
the patterns of play.
You see the patterns of play, and that's the key thing.
Yeah.
And we've complained about, you know, Martinelli's delivery with assists and goals. We know that Odegaard's having, for him, something of an off season, but those two players are prime examples of what they give you without the ball. Yeah. Martinelli was like a wing back. He wasn't just a winger yesterday. Odegaard is a one-man press. There were times in the game when Madrid couldn't get out because he was keeping them pegged in. And I only saw that from the elevated position. And of course, it's him getting the ball on the right, and then cutting in and then finding the pass inside. So he's still knitting the play together. He's leading by example. Of course, we'd like a few more goals and assists from him, you know, as we do most in the team. But given the disruption to a lot of our starting lineups at different times, and we've said before what a relationships team we are, him and Saka being in is just magic. And for Saka to take his goal as sweetly as he did, you know, over arguably the world's best keeper at the moment in Courtois, was brilliant. He shushed the crowd. He celebrated like a fan. It was just incredible. Definitely. And you go for, the roller coaster. You go from that high, to a minute later.
Well, let's just enjoy that moment a little bit longer, please. I was just going to say about Odegaard, I did think he was poorer in the first half. I think he simplified things in the second half and just kept it simple. There was one moment in the first half that really infuriated me, where there was a simple pass. He was in his kind of on the edge of our defensive third, and he'd kind of, rather than play a simple ball out, he turned back in field into danger, where you have to be absolutely sure you're going to make it when you do that, because you're just basically giving it to the opposition to, you know, more infield. So that frustrated me, and I just thought he needs to just put his foot on it and simplify, and I think he did in the second half, so credit to him. But yeah, Saliba brain fart, I mean, there's not much to say about it really. It was just a gift, wasn't it?
Yeah. And to consider, we've played now 180 minutes against Real Madrid, the holders of the Champions League, who are still sort of in a title race, although Barcelona are clearly favourites, and full of Galacticos, especially up front. Their one goal over 2 games came from a quite rare error from a normally, you know, dependable and world-class player. A player they are interested in, if the rumours are to be believed. A friend of mine did sort of half-jokingly sort of say, it's a tactical brain fart from Saliba to put them off so he can stay at Arsenal. Yeah.
Nice one. Do it in about the 70th minute so that there's not enough time for them to come back. And
well, that was the thing, isn't it? I mean, it was so frustrating because it was enough time for them to believe, you know, because everyone who I spoke to said, you know, because they scored 3 quick goals against City, wasn't it, last year or the year before? I can't remember. And everyone said, well, they could score 3 goals in 3 minutes. They're that kind of team. So they were still long enough for us to feel a little bit twitchy, but realistically, given how little we'd given them, it was, you know, it was what it was. It was just a sort of rare error. And props to the player playing alongside of him. Jakub Kivior is a revelation. And again, it's one of those things, you know, there are some players, if they're integral to the starting lineup, then when they're out, everyone's like, oh, we really, 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 really miss them. And then there are other players who are the sort of fringe players, you know, they're squad players anyway, and everyone sort of says, well, they're not good enough, are they? I'm going to tell you what, Kivior has now had 2 spells where he's come in as a backup, It was kind of full back last season, and then it's at centre back this season, and he's been magnificent. He has been solidly dependable, and he's just shown, because he's an international. He's a Polish international. He's played so well over these couple of games that it gives us huge amount of confidence. I mean, it helps having good players around him as well, because Lewis Skelly's been brilliant. Saliba, apart from that brain fart, was really good. His one-to-one duels, that brilliant moment where he's holding off Mbappe, shielding it out for a corner. We celebrated that like it was a goal. It was just incredible. Partey and Rice, in midfield, and like I say, Martinelli, his work rate and effort, and I was so pleased that he managed to get his reward as well.
It's so good to see them both back, Saka and Martinelli. They give us so much. As like you said, defending as a team, they are so integral in that. But obviously, the attacking options they give us. And just a word on Kivior. He was the oldest in the back line. So we talk about him as this backup. But when you think about where we are, how young we are as a team, and that back line, what are they, 23, 21, 22 and 18? And then Kivior, 26, whatever. There was one moment where he headed it back to Raya in goal where he could have just leathered it out, and it just summed up his
He was holding off Endrick. The ball had been put over to Endrick, and then he was just kind of holding him off, and then it just tried to get it away, but just nodded it back. I mean, the coolness, the calmness, that's just brilliant. Yeah, magnificent.
And so the singing must have started getting louder in the Arsenal end, with what, 10 minutes to go, just thinking this is done now. Isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a few new songs like the Bella Ciao Martinelli song that I sort of regaled you with at the start, and there's a Declan Rice one which hasn't properly taken off yet, but I quite like to sway.
What's the words? You don't have to sing it, but
it's
Holly would like you to sing it, but.
Went to the Emirates the other night to see the boys in red and white.
Very good.
And Mick Arteta looked us in the eye and said to us, "We're buying Declan Rice." La 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 la, and that's good. It kicks off then. No, it was really good. And there's even one to the way to Amarillo. Is this show me the way, Mikel Merino? We've come so far since the days of Gervinho. Off to Munich with that boy Bukayo. The Champions League awaits for us. Yes.
Oh, I love it.
And it was just building and building and building. And like you say, and then someone I was with sort of mentioned that it's as great as it is going through, wouldn't it be nice to actually get a winner? And then moments later, it's injury time. And Martinelli produces a sprint that I don't think I've seen from any player so late in a tense two-legged affair against the European champions. And you put together a video kind of split screening it with the Henry goal from 2006, and there are a few. He doesn't maybe go around as many players, but the angle he goes from and the way he slots it home. Oh my days! That I've watched that so many times.
Chills.
It's absolutely brilliant. And Martinelli is now, with the chant, that I did at the start, he's now cemented as a bit of a legend for that. It was such a well taken goal, and just from that point onwards, it was just party time. It was amazing.
I do wonder whether the layoff that he had has given him time to kind of reassess his game and just be a bit more focused on, because he's been pretty good since he came back.
He's been very good.
Let's hope that he's.
But then I think also the biggest thing, he's a high energy player. So I think the break is as much as a rest as recovering from any injury that he's got. And now it's like he's alert and just ready to go. And it's like yesterday, he just saw, obviously Madrid are trying to pile forward because, they still going to try to the bitter end. And so when we sort of pick up the ball, was it from a corner or a throw or something like that? I can't remember. And he sees the opportunity and he just goes. And it's a Merino again. It's 2 assists at the Bernabeu. Who needs a striker? And yeah, I think it's as much Martinelli sort of seeing that and going for it. All right, game state means it's probably less of a risk than it might have been were the score tighter. overall, but you still got to do it. And to then say we've won at the Bernabeu again, are we Madrid's bogey side? Is that what we're saying now?
Who was your man of the match, quickly?
It's so difficult. It's so difficult.
Go on, you've got to pick one.
If I had to pick one, I genuinely, I'm struggling, but I'm probably going to say Marino. I think. I'm literally, I could hear the case for any of them. Timber gave nothing away. Saliba, he probably loses 1 point for the brain fart, but otherwise was excellent. Kivior was understated but brilliant. Lewis Skelly he's on another planet, this kid. Because I heard someone online mention today, is Lewis Skelly ahead of where Saka was at that age? Albeit in a slightly different position, and he's going to be less attacking on run. But it's like, wow, Raya didn't put a foot wrong, but then again, he didn't have a huge amount to do. Rice is just... I know Rice got man of the match again, and he was great. But I don't know. Whoever. I don't care. Just give it to whoever.
Yeah.
Partey gets a point off for his yellow card. That was stupid and unnecessary. And Declan Rice let him know it as well, which was quite good. But Marino, 2 assists, leading from the front. He put an absolute shift in. He can't press with the same intensity as Odegaard, but he's still pressing with him. He's still part of that setup. He was just... He's just great.
Yeah. Holly and I, just out of interest, we put Rice down as our favourite, I think, in the immediate aftermath of the game. But like you, on reflection, you watch it and you go, it could have gone to so many players. I think it was because Rice was brilliant in different ways across the 2 games as well, that just gives him that edge. You've said before about how Rice is not just a midfielder of one type, but he's a kind of an amalgam of several types, box to box, traditional, shielding the front four, whatever. He was our choice. Just before I forget as well, in the post-match presser on the pitch, where MLS and Rice was stood next to each other. And just a sign for me, and I pick up on these things quite a lot, with these kind of just these little hints of where people are at mentally, psychologically. He kept patting Rice on the back as he was speaking. So Rice would say something about the game and, I can't believe that, we've done this, blah, 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 and he's holding his little trophy or whatever. And MLS is just giving him little pats on the back, like he's the senior player. There's this aura is the wrong word, but there's a confidence that exudes that belies his age, and it's not. And if it is arrogance, it's backed up with talent. I don't care. It's just so refreshing. It's so good to see. And yeah, the haters are going to hate, but for me, I love that unapologeticness that he displays. And it's where he's at.
He looks like he just enjoys football as well. There's nothing I don't like. Yeah, arrogance is in the wrong hands. As I'm not a huge fan of Cristiano Ronaldo, but if someone's going to be arrogant, there's a guy who's like,
be that good.
Be that good. Yeah, exactly right. I'm trying to think of an example at the other end, but I don't really want to pick on a sort of player. But if you're someone like John Joe Shelby. If you remember him, coming through, giving it the big eye, and now he was a good player, but he was never quite.
We had
that
David
level.
Bentley, didn't we?
David Bentley, Nicholas Bentner. There you go, to choose an Arsenal one.
Yeah.
There you go, Lord bloody Bentner. It's like, come on, you can't do it for 5 minutes and then just expect you've got to hit that level all the time. And that's the thing, the best players do it consistently. That's where Saka's at now. He's doing it consistently. Lewis Skelly's in a brilliant moment, and he just looks like he can just every new level that's put in front of him, he just steps up to it. It's just incredible. Again, didn't see it at the time. That there was a brilliant celebration where the players all came to the away end, albeit from a mile away as we were in the clouds, waving up at us. But they all celebrated, and it just looked like a real. Look, you've just won at the Bernabeu and you've gone through, you've knocked out the European champions. Of course, the vibes are going to be good, but we see it a lot where, and I've seen it since in a video that some, clearly the TV companies are sort of taking. It looks genuine. There's a moment where Arteta is hugged by about 4 or 5 different players. it's reciprocated. He loves his players. If they show him the effort that he demands, then he feeds it back, and they love him for it. Rice said after I think it was the Emirates game about, this being a special team and we can do special things, and they really believe it and they're trying to make it happen. And of course it's football, and we know we're not going to take PSG lightly in the next round at all, but to have done what we've done, if any other team does that, it's praise to the hilt. And I've got nothing for praise for this team, because they've just given me one of the most special few days that I've had as an Arsenal fan, travelling out to Madrid with all those, thousands of Arsenal fans, to then see a performance like that it's just incredible.
Well said. And I'll come back to something you've just mentioned, but I want to chuck in a bit of what Holly had to say. And I'll read it verbatim because it's lovely. My contribution is simply that there are far too many positive things to say to be able to do them justice in a WhatsApp message. I'll sum it up with these 3 words. Arsenal has arrived. And then he's put in brackets, or have arrived, as it sounds better. But I think grammatically, I think the first...
I'm sure he'll thank you for that.
Yeah. No, I like his kind of precision on that, which sort of brings me back to say we've arrived... in what does that look like now after this victory? Because pitch side afterwards, you had the Rio Keown and what's his name, McManaman with his Turkish teeth, talking about what this means. And McManaman was at pains to point out it's only a quarter final. You've only won a quarter final. You have to go on and win it now. You have to go on and win it. So where do you think it leaves us in terms of, what is this statement, as we feel it is a statement win? Where do you think it leaves us as a club, from our perspective, but also from the outside looking in?
When we challenged for the title 3 seasons ago, my biggest fear that this was a one-off, that this was a flash in the pan, that we had some good youngsters, offset with a couple of other sort of good players in there as well, and that this would essentially, it would be a something of a flash in the pan. That Arteta's done quite well. We've had a bit of change, and this kind of might be it, and that it might not be sustainable. But then we challenged for the title again in a slightly different way, and I thought, oh, okay, right, so we are going to evolve, and there's clearly we talk about the floor, don't we? The floor is rising each time. Well, we've challenged for the title again, albeit not nearly as closely this year for a variety of reasons, as much as Liverpool running away with it as our own issues. But we're still second, and given the way some other teams have fallen off with their own sort of context, we're still sort of finding our floor. You've got to remember as well, because of that title charge 3 seasons ago, this is only this team and this manager's second season in the Champions League. It was quarterfinals last time, facing Bayern, a couple of naive things, it was one of those. Bayern looked to have a little bit more pedigree, and it was what it was. And we've come back and we've bettered that again this season. McManaman can talk about just trophies all you like. As a fan, as a match-going fan, the trophies are just the icing on the cake. If you are such a joyless person if all you care about is trophies, because football is a hobby at the end of the day. Let's face it. I know there's multi-billion-pound industries behind it, and this, that, and the other. But for me, it's about watching my team play. If they give their effort and win a game, I'm delighted. But at the same time, it's about trajectory. Actually, if that Arsenal team 3 seasons ago, and don't get me wrong, I would have loved us to have won the title at that point, but if they had won the title, I wonder how sustainable that floor would have been. And so we're doing it in increments, and I like that we're doing it in increments. If we go on and manage to get through past PSG and then manage to win it, I mean, that's amazing. But also the foundations have now been laid. If we were a team out of nowhere, you look at Mourinho's Porto that won it in, I think it was '04, wasn't it? '03, '04, one of those years, I can't remember. That team was broken up almost immediately. Because of Porto's financial situation, they just won the Champions League. They're a bit of a selling club anyway, as happens in Portugal because of the sheer value of it. Whereas now, like we said it a couple of episodes ago, we're turning into a destination club. We're not quite there yet. We're not quite there yet because until some silverware is there, but people want to be part of it. Man City were after Rice. They wanted Rice. Rice didn't want them. Now, he's got his own personal reasons for that. He wanted to be, he's a London boy and he's settled, but he liked what was being sold at Arsenal. And to the trajectory, the steps, the foundations that are being laid is just brilliant. That's where we're at. Where we're at now is we're at the top table. We're there. We are there. We have arrived. Arrived makes it sound like it's just happened. It hasn't. It's been happening for about 4 years now, and it's culminating in these great things. Change just doesn't happen like that. Very few clubs, unless you've got endless piles of money, can just spend their way to success. Look at Chelsea at the minute. Man City have done it. Chelsea did do it, when Abramovich first took over. Those days are slowly sort of fading. Heard some brilliant analysis on a few programmes I was listening to on the way back about, look at the 4 semi-finalists. Arsenal, PSG, Inter, and who's the other one? Barcelona. Now, all right, Barcelona are pulling some interesting financial levers, as they sort of tend to do. But all 4 of those teams are teams. They are collectives. They have stars, but they all are stars within a system. They have an ideology. Inter, defence first, hit you on the counter. Barca, high line, attack, intensity, press. PSG are kind of similar to Barcelona. They have an ethos about them. PSG have had to abandon the whole buying superstars thing because the only time they didn't make, I think, either the quarterfinals or the semi-finals was when they had Neymar, Messi, and who was the other one that was there? Suarez, was it? I think. And they've abandoned that. Dembele's a superstar of sorts, but not really. The rest of the team are all young and hungry, like Arteta's built with us. So the success comes from an ideology, from an ethos, and we have that, and we're moving forward. If it leads to a trophy, brilliant. It'll be the icing on the cake. But if it doesn't, we're all still delighted with where we're at. I noticed, all right, Manaman was saying that. What was Keown saying? Because I haven't really seen his follow-up. What was Keown saying?
Keown was very, as you'd expect, he was just, look, let's enjoy the moment. We've just beaten Real Madrid here in the Bernabeu. What are you talking about, kind of thing. Arsenal bias, but just being practical as well. And like you said, what kind of a joyless creature are you if you can't just enjoy the moment? And yes, we all want the trophies, but I'm with you 100%. And I just see this as this incremental progress. But the fact that we are competing compared to where we were, and seriously competing on the Premier League and the Champions League, is just so, as a fan, is just where I want to be. And, moments like that, you can't take it away. And I know Holly will look at it slightly differently because he wants to be able to look back with the trophy on the shelf and go, that game mattered. Well, for me, it matters because it's part of what we're enjoying as fans, every step of the way.
I think, and I definitely do take Holly's point as well. And he said himself about those other things. Like you still enjoy, the Bournemouth victory or the Madrid victory to the fullest, and then it's over time whether that means more and this, that, and the other. But at the same time, I think in cup competitions particularly, enjoying that moment of the progression is fine. In a league situation, I can maybe see where it's got to add up to more. And that's why we find the disappointing results in the league, West Ham this year particularly, dropping points against Villa or whatever. those are just as annoying because you know the impact that they can have on the sort of bigger picture. But yeah, I mean, I like your phrase there. It's where we want to be. We want to be not only competing with, but beating Madrid in the knockout phase of the Champions League. You know, some teams just want to be in the knockout phase of the Champions League, let alone beating the current holders. So it's unbelievable. And again, this goes back to Arteta, because yes, there is a problem with those other games where we draw blanks or we get frustrated, but there's no questioning the big game mentality that we now have. Because actually, you think about it, the last couple of results in the league, 1-1 Brentford, 1-1 Everton, to then switch it on, that must be a hard thing to do, because we all talk about things like rhythm and keeping your sort of, I don't know, keeping the melody going, as it were, with a team. So to have those kind of flat spots in between, to then up it to beat Real Madrid, that's something else. That's unbelievable, really. So long may it continue. Bring on PSG.
Yeah, and I think deep down they knew the league was gone a few games back, and although Arteta will want to see effort and, like you said, a rhythm and not to drop the ball completely, that's bound to have an effect. You're bound to be just in the back of your mind thinking, I don't want to get crocked for Madrid, and the way that he's been managing the team as well and rotating. Which brings us nicely on to Ipswich away, which we kind of have to look over our shoulders a bit, I think, after those two draws in the league.
After the two draws in the league, and also Newcastle winning their games in hand, rather convincingly as well. What are they, 4 points behind us now? And we've still got to play them? Yeah. We shall see. I mean, look, I'm going from, and this is no offence to Ipswich, except it sort of is, I'm going from the Bernabeu to Portman Road. But I've never been to Portman Road, and actually at the start of the season, this was, one of the first fixtures in the calendar that I circled, because the point of me going to lots of these away games is to sustain my credit, so I can have the privilege of being able to go, okay, I've earned the right now to go to a newly promoted Portman Road. Albeit it looks like it might only be short-lived. They're probably going to go down. But at the same time, they're still playing, they got 2-2 against Chelsea last time out. There's commitment there. They're loyal fans. It's going to be an interesting place to go. But as settings go, purely, it's going to be such night and day. I'm going to be a lot closer to the pitch. That's for damn sure. And I have to liken it. There was my first ever European away trip was away to Munich a number of years ago. I won't talk about what the result was there. And then the following Monday, so I think it was Munich on the Wednesday, and then on the Monday we had an FA Cup game against Sutton United, and I was at that. So I went from the Allianz Arena in Munich to Sutton United, where they had to make a temporary stand out of scaffolding in order to seat a few extra Arsenal fans in the away end. It was night and day. I mean, this is pretty close.
Portman Road's probably only about 20 miles from you, isn't it?
Oh, it's a lot further than you think, because everyone talks up the Old Farm derby between Norwich and Ipswich. They're 40 miles away. But because they're the only big teams really on what you'd call the East Coast, I suppose, they're seen as local rivals. And everyone takes the mick out of, say, Palace and Brighton not being, they're not rivals, how are they rivals? Well, they're about as far away from each other as Norwich and Ipswich are. But this part of the world that, I live in Norfolk, everything's so sparse and spread out that it does feel local. So actually, it's still going to be a bit of a travel. But yeah, for me, it's like going somewhere, so close. It's like you getting on the bus just to go down to the Emirates.
And be late.
So,
do you have a team in mind?
I have a team in mind. Arteta did his pre-match press conference today. I don't know how. I mean, I've been able to think about nothing else apart from Madrid, so how he's able to then switch attention to Ipswich, I don't know. He released some information about injuries, Havertz is progressing a lot faster than they thought, but he's unlikely to make the PSG game. I only mentioned that just because I think it's interesting. He's still going to be back way ahead of schedule. But the one that might have been a bit closer for this game would be Calafiori, and it looks very unlikely that he's going to be available. So with the changes that I think are possible, and just going on what happened at Brentford, I've got Raya in goal. I've got a back four of White, Saliba, Kivior and Tierney. The reason I've got Tierney at left back is because I've got a midfield three of Zinchenko, Rice and Marino, because Zinchenko sort of played the Brentford, the Odegaard role against Brentford, so I think he might go with that to give Odegaard a bit of a rest. And then a front three of Waneri, Trossard and Sterling. So, yeah.
I've got exactly the same team.
You've got exactly the same team?
Exactly the same.
Okay.
For that reason as well, giving Odegaard a breather, I do think he'll get minutes, like in the previous game where we shifted quite a few around on the sort of 63, 64 against Brentford. Similar with Holly, he's gone with Raya in goal, White, Saliba, Kivior, and then he's got Tierney / Zinchenko / Calafiori. I don't think he knew about Calafiori, but anyone but Lewis Skelly he's put. Then he wants Partey anchoring, I guess, and then Odegaard, he's playing him from the start with Zinchenko to the left, which I think he's normally Zinchenko when has played as a right eight rather than a left. But I mean, he's 2-footed, so I'm sure he could do that. And then Waneri, Trossard and Sterling up front. So yeah, similar front three to us.
And then there'll be things. So with mine, there's still a question mark over Ben White and how fit he is, because he keeps having the odd setback. They're obviously treating him very carefully, but I think Timber definitely will benefit from that rest. And the reason I haven't started with Partey, look, Partey's been playing almost as a midweek player, and they're clearly managing the amount of load or minutes that he plays. But at the same time, I do think he might start with Rice and Marino to see how that dynamic works, because it could be that that's the likely starting lineup against PSG, with a view that Rice will be taken off almost as early as possible for Partey to bring that in. The other thing I noticed as well was, although Trossard came on as a substitute against Madrid, there was a ball that was played out wide, and I can't remember if it was the one where he tried to keep the ball on the touchline and then basically fluffed it, or one where he was kind of bundled and tackled off to the side, but he certainly moved very gingerly afterwards, and there were clips of him in the celebrations when they were running up and cheering with the away end where he didn't look to be moving overly comfortable. And look, I think he starts just because that's the sort of shadow team that we've got now. If Trossard's not right enough to start, I don't know where you go after that. I think it has to be one of these kids that have been on the bench, whether it's Butler or Deji, who's patiently been waiting for his sort of opportunity, or one of the others. I don't know, because actually after a couple of players, we are then just having to turn to the academy. So we'll see. But look, if you're going to do it now. We've got Palace midweek next week because of their FA Cup adventure, and that also means we then have the weekend off, so there can be a full kind of regrouping. So it's about getting through these ties, making sure we get maximum points where we can, because Ipswich, albeit they try, they're clearly not brilliant. So hopefully we can do what we can against them. And then Palace look like they're saving themselves for their FA Cup semi-finals, because they were pretty woeful against Newcastle from what I read about it, and hopefully we can take advantage of that.
Well, speaking of result, what have you got for the Ipswich game?
Despite me saying I hope we take maximum points, I'm just in this weird headspace now. 1-1.
Right. We've just beaten Real Madrid at the Bernabeu, and you're giving me 1-1. Okay.
Well, yeah, we'd just beaten Real Madrid at home, and then we drew with Brentford. So
I know it doesn't work like that, does it?
No.
Okay, Holly's gone slightly more optimistically with 2-1 to the Arsenal. I'm going even more optimistic. I think we're going to do them 2-0.
Hey.
So there.
It won't be a case of just rocking up there. We've got to be sort of fully focused where we can. It's on the Sunday, so we get something of a day's rest. But if you're not an Arsenal player carrying in lots of confidence and seeing how it goes. The only issue is obviously it's a lot of changes to the team, and it's all about that rhythm does get then lost and disrupted. So that's why my mind is in a slightly more negative place. That's all.
Yeah, I suppose I can see that with the Brentford game where there were changes, but we did find our rhythm eventually. And in a way, I think ironically, when we did bring on our kind of first teamers, we lost a bit of that fluency, So the players that we've mentioned as a first 11 are good enough to go to Ipswich and win. And
yeah, absolutely.
As a club, we're on a high, and hopefully they'll carry that into the game. And we need to win it because, like I said, we've got other teams breathing down our necks, and I don't subscribe to the thing of finishing third is better in any way, as Holly does.
Finish as high as we can.
Yeah, and on a high.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think what we'll do is we'll get together after the Ipswich game and look ahead, I suppose, to the Palace one as well.
Yeah.
For what they're worth.
Premier League takes stock.
Yeah.
It'll be more about the chasing pack, 4 points to Newcastle and another, it's 6 to Forest. So it's all nip and tuck. And a lot of these teams face each other. Villa still in the mix, Chelsea, City. Oh, yeah, we don't need that on our. I'm dreading this Newcastle game now. We've got them in a few weeks, haven't we? Oh. Yeah, never mind. Anyway, when it comes. Exactly. On to the Champions League. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. His name is Gabby. Oh, what a night it was.
I'm gonna use that to play us out. All right. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, everyone. Catch you next time.
See ya.
The North Bank, an Arsenal podcast. Subscribe, rate and review on your app, and find us on Twitter, Instagram and TikTok at North Bank Pod. Email hello@thenorthbankafc.com and check out our website, thenorthbankafc.com. Produced by the Podcast Company.